If you enjoy the story, give it a like and feel free to leave a comment. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be the first to hear new cryptid tales. I'm always looking for stories to share, so if you've had your own encounter with the unknown, send me an email at cryptidtalesmel@gmail.com. Somewhere in the wild, between Huntington and Williamson, roams a beast, which remains a pure myth. For most, it is just a mere figment of imagination that they are not even aware of. This cryptid, which is called the Sheepsquatch because it resembles a sheep and a Sasquatch, is very unknown to almost everyone on planet Earth. There have not been too many accounts concerning this beast, this savage monster of mysterious origin that maybe once swept across the lands of America before the name America was even conceived. So this is a story, my personal encounter with this being. I am a Cherokee chief, and my tribe used to be in this part of southern West Virginia, and according to our legends, this cryptid was a harbinger of death. We call the Sheepsquatch a white wolf, which has some magic aura surrounding it that seems to follow it. We believe that it appears to people who are about to die and have death enwrapping them. Perhaps I am the only one, or one of the few, who have seen this creature without dying, but my encounter may also have to do with a death of someone in the nearby region, where I stumbled upon this white and fierce beast, who really was mind-boggling. It is so hard to really convey the feeling, the sentiment that you have at the moment when you are confronted with this beast, this thing that is not meant to exist. If one is a firm believer in the established science, that sadly is very faulty. If one has the courage and the devotion to really look at its profound unsolved questions. But let me return to my story, which began on the 15th of June. It was a very sunny day, and I was out hiking enjoying the beautiful scenery of the wonderful forest, which still to some extent still reflects the past of my ancestors' heritage, the time when West Virginia was exempt from towns and roads, the time when we natives were left to our own devices and the Europeans had not yet conquered the land. Sorry for touching on an issue which might be offensive for some, but what should I say? The question of land and property was never a great deal to our people, and only the European had the mentality of doing so. This is because we as Native Americans do not see the land as our land, but rather look at it as the land which we should take care of and live in harmony with. While hiking and taking a good glance at my surroundings, I noticed a weird hut, which seemed to be abandoned. It was one of these hovels that were a remnant of a mining era, probably built by some mountain folk in the early 1800s. But I am not really sure, because I am not a real expert when it comes to architecture. Something drew me towards this hut, and I still cannot really explain why. I was really enthralled and mesmerized at the same time. There was an eerie itch to this strange, desolate abode, but something there was so enticing that I decided to take a nap there. This is when all the strange things occurred, and my worldview would be shattered at once. I had no idea what I would encounter, and had no clue that these creatures were alive and kicking, and did not evade the sunlight. Well, I guess that the first strange thing that I noticed was that I had the feeling of being watched. There was something pervading in the air, something intrepid and very uncanny that I could not describe. And maybe that was the macabre element of this experience, which caused me to lose my ease. After having fallen into a slumber, I awoke 4 hours later, and the sun had lost some of its strength. Slowly its rays were dwindling, but the sky was still very fair and light. Suddenly, I could hear twigs and branches crack. At first, I thought that it must have been some kind of animal, but later I had drawn the conclusion that these sounds, which were repeating themselves continually, until they came to an unprecedented halt were not the usual sounds of an animal. Then I could feel the breathing of something big, and the thumping of footsteps were now very audible. I froze for a second or two, and then I jumped under the bed, which was adjacent to the little kitchen where I was sitting at a little wooden table, shivering with anxiety. A short while after I had jumped under the bed, I could hear knocks and pounding, which sounded more like vehement thrashing to me, against the door of the hut. I kept quiet and was trembling now at an extent that I barely had my body under control. For a moment the knocks and the pounding stopped, but they were soon to be continued until the door burst open. This creature had somehow broken it down. I guessed that its physical prowess might have been the factor for that, but maybe it might have had some other sort of aptitude, which I was and still am unaware of. Heavy but slow, the creature stepped into the cabin and began to look around, searching for something, maybe something edible like myself. I could hear it pant and grunt, and now I could see it visibly, because the door to the kitchen had not been closed completely. This thing was massive, and it was taller than the ceiling, so that is why it was not standing straight. Its fur was of a white and silvery hue, and its face resembled that of a sheep. But the strange thing was that it still had some humanoid features, reminding me of a Sasquatch. Its eyes were ferocious and were sparkling with vivid anger of some sort of perturbed or contorted emotions which I was not able to really perceive. I was totally shocked for multiple reasons. Firstly, I had never had a close encounter with any cryptid. Secondly, this one was of a very aggressive nature. And thirdly, this one was even strange to someone like me, because I had neither heard or seen such a beast. Now every minute that went past seemed like an eternity to me. Now I was stuck between life and death while feeling the presence of this thing that was so out of this world to me. My worldview, its foundation, was crushed and came tumbling down the slope into a very murky abyss, where hope and despair merge into an amalgamate of unknown form. Then I heard this monster bleat in such a terrible manner that I must have lost my consciousness for a while, because all that I can recall was that I awoke and noticed that the Sheepsquatch had left. It took me a while to mitigate myself and get out from under the bed. I was still in shock, and fear was still yielding its authority in my mind. So it was no enigma that I needed some time to realize that it was night and stars were shining through the treetops of the beautiful and quiet forest that was exuding some sort of placidness and calmness now, albeit a false state of peace. I decided to get out of the cabin and walk to the next road, which must have been a few miles from where it was standing. A warm breeze with some chilly undertones began to surround me, and I was able to gradually forget the horrid recent memories of that terrible experience, which in fact was very multifaceted, so that it was not only to be seen as a mere negative and bad one. I had just seen a creature who was so rare, or at least unknown to most people of this world, and that alone was something special in its own right. As I was thinking about this aspect of my experience, I ascertained that I was being watched. I turned my head and stopped for a moment, after having walked for at least a mile or so, but nothing was to be neither seen nor heard. Strange, what is this? Is it the creature, the Sheepsquatch? I thought to myself. Then I heard something, which sounded very odd to me, which caused me to continue on walking, although my heart was pounding at a rate which was so incredible that I had a hard time doing so. Every step, every sound was reminding me of this odd noise, which I had just heard. Despair and a load of doubts concealed my mind. Everything seemed blurry now, and every plant had the appearance of being something weird, something uncanny. My perception had turned from a positive one into a negative one, and I thought that I was being watched by every breathing thing in the forest. I started to walk faster, and fear was creeping up on my now very distraught and fragile mind. After a while, I don't actually know how long it took me, maybe an hour or more, I could see a road which paved its way along the rows of trees. It was a tar-sealed road, and I sighed. Suddenly, I had hope again, and was relieved to have found a road. As I arrived at the road, I decided to just walk in the middle of it, hoping that some random driver would stop and give me a lift. My pace of walking slowed down a bit, and my heart was beating again at a normal rate. Still, slightly nervous and agitated, I kept on walking. Some time later, I heard another strange noise, coming from the forest. I ignored it and carried on, but soon thereafter I heard a similar one, and then another. The fear, which I thought to have conquered, returned, and with it sudden apparition of the Sheepsquatch. It did not take long until I could sense its presence. I began to run and run and run, hearing the breathing of this intrepid beast, which was right behind me. Then I cannot really remember well what occurred, because after that I had received a knock on my back, which, as I later have found out, caused me to become unconscious. The only thing that I remember was that I awoke in a small hospital and that I had several stitches on my arms and legs. Later, I discovered that someone had saved me from this monster, who had knocked me to the ground and viciously attacked me. This person was Brad Stinn, a hunter, who had by chance been driving on that road. He saw the beast and fired at it without wincing. This seemed to have scared it away and saved my life, because who really knows what it would have done to me. If one is to believe the rumors, there are a lot of people who have gone missing in this area. I wonder why this is so. Could it be the fact that this beast, this cryptid, might be responsible for some of the disappearances? Maybe. Who really knows? At least my people say that it is territorial and does not like people intruding because it sees them as a menace. If I think about that, I guess I can really understand why this is so. But I would like you to make up your own mind, because I have no intention to force my experiences, my worldviews on anyone. But please be aware, even if you are a skeptic, and trust me, I was one too. Just be careful and don't venture off alone into the forests of West Virginia, because you can never know who or what might be lurking there. Even if you deny its existence, it is still alive and kicking, as they say.